Siam, Misep Kakoilam, Haichka Tuchilam for drumming us in. Ixnet, good evening, everyone. Haichka Haisapka for joining us. I just want to say a special thank you to Spalaktuit and Kukwimasot, Angeline and Terry Splachton, for the table song, for starting our meal off in a good way and ensuring that our food was blessed and the hands that prepared it were blessed. Again, thank you again to Bryce Williams, to Chilam, Yalchwans for drumming us in, and for Asumit and Kathy Kermy from Osea Catering for providing us that wonderful and nourishing meal. I also just want to acknowledge that we're at a different location today, and I'll speak a little bit more about that later, but it feels good to have the cedar around us, the cedar poles around us. And it is fitting tonight that we are here in the gym of the youth center, that we call upon one of our youth, Dayton Jacobs Mayall, to open our time with a prayer. And I'm have a deep respect for this young man for stepping forward. He's done our feather runner work many times, and he's stepped up to do many different pieces of work with our language and our play. And I'm just so grateful that he has accepted the offer to come up and start this legislative assembly, our government, his government, in a good way. Dayton, I invite you to come and start our meeting off with a prayer. And of course, you have the feather.
Dayton Tanasquich Talitsan at Swasan. My name's Dayton and I'm from Twasan. Ich le titwial at sitsal siam. Huyanem at a sans stitwial. Hich lemetal tanatweal. Tathikum shuch I sawatal tatsiai st. Quom stuch tashqualowinst.
Siam, thank you so much, Dayton. Hearing our language from a youth connects us to our ancestors and to our culture and allows us to start this session in a really good way. Thank you so much again. My hand's raised to Dayton. What a perfect way to start off our time together. Well, legislators, I'd like to welcome you back for another, I don't know if it'll be exciting, but I'm sure it'll be an informative and full of discussion fall session. It's wonderful to see all of your faces gathered around this table, and we've got some work to do, but I know that we're up for the task and we're up for the challenge to get all the work done that we need to do for this session. And while we move through the work that we need to do for our people, for our government, I'd like to keep in mind the motto that we all agreed upon at the beginning of our term, Natsamat, for current and future generations. The work that we do is important for our people of today, but it's also important for the future generations, for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren, and so on. So with that in mind, I think that we can conduct our work in a good way and accomplish a great deal working together as one. I'd like to extend a special Misep Kakwelam welcome to our special guests from the Squamish Nation. Thank you for visiting us as we start our fall session here today. It's always lovely to have guests to come and share and observe and support us, and we feel your energy supporting us as we sit here today. We have the work that we have to do. We have to think about how this work is going to move forward. And each question that we ask, we debate the information that is presented to us. We think about it, how it impacts our relatives, our children, our lands, our resources, our culture. And each decision that we vote upon, we do so with the well-being of our people in mind, our lands in mind, our ancestors in mind, and our future generations in mind. So thank you for that work that we're going to be doing this session. I'd also like to welcome the elders that have come here today and to share this evening with us and lend their support. Any advisory council members that are here today in person or viewing live stream, community members, staff, and to those that are also joining us on live stream, welcome and thank you. Finally, I'd like to welcome again our feather runner. Dayton is wearing two hats today. He's wearing his opening prayer hat, and he's also our feather runner. And he's an experienced feather runner, so he knows how it works. He'll be waiting for your hand to come into the air. We ask that you wait for Dayton to give you that feather, and staff to wait for Dayton to give you that feather before you speak, and to make sure to pass it back to him. He has an important role, and it is part of the structure that we've created to support respect, decorum, and allowing each other to speak. However, if you forget to wait for the feather and you speak before Dayton's giving you the feather, there's a $5 fine that goes to the feather runner. So we'll just keep that. Mary's got experience with that one a couple times, I think. Also, just out of respect and courtesy, before we get into our agenda, a reminder to ensure that your cell phones are on silent. We would really greatly appreciate that. I see that all of our legislators are present today, so thank you again for that. Thank you again for allowing us to pivot to this location. Sometimes we're not comfortable with change. Now that I'm sitting here and I am surrounded by the cedar posts and the cedar, the walls, and I guess I can climb up the wall if I'm feeling like I need to exert a little energy. I'm happy to be here, and it makes me think of the future generations and the governance work that they'll be doing, and that youth like Dayton and our other feather runners. So it makes me, reminds me of that future that governance will be going to after some of us retire earlier than others. All right, our first order of business is to move the agenda for the fall 2025 session. During this session, we will be considering Bill 002, 2025, the Elections Act. Bill 003, 2025, the Education, Health, and Social Development Act. We will also hold an employee affirmation ceremony. I see that there's quite a few employees that will be sharing their oath with us today. And we will be hearing a report on previous resolutions. Also, legislatures will have an opportunity to introduce resolutions during this session, and the date scheduled for an introduction to resolutions is Thursday, November 13th. Remember to please speak to staff sometime before that to get the assistance that you might need in drafting a resolution. Are there any questions from legislators regarding this agenda for this session? All right, Heitke. We'll now read the motion and then ask for a mover and a seconder. Motion to approve the fall 2025 legislative agenda. Whereas Section 14 of the Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual requires the legislature to present an agenda for a legislative assembly session. Therefore, be it moved that the Tsawwassen Legislature approves the following session agenda. Legislation, Bill 002, 2025, the Elections Act 2025. Bill 003, 2025, the Education, Health, and Social Development Amendment Act 2025. Reports and presentations, report on previous legislature resolutions, update on amendments to the land use plan, Advisory Council report on Bill 002, 2025, Elections Act 2025. Advisory Council report on Bill 003, 2025, the Education, Health, and Social Development Amendment Act 2025. A report on major initiatives, update on facilities plan, resolutions, opportunity for legislatures to introduce resolutions, and under other, public service affirmation ceremony. May I please have a mover? Tehuila moving, seconder. Spiloctowit, Terry Splocton, seconder. All in favor, please raise your hands high. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, legislatures. We can now begin the work of this session. So for tonight, agenda, we're going to start with one of my favorite parts, and that's opening remarks from all legislatures. Kathy has decided that it's okay to go, Tiesmelot has decided that, Legislature Tiesmelot has decided that it's okay to go first, so we'll continue with that because we had talked about maybe rotating in a different way. And then after the opening remarks from our legislatures, we will invite our honored guests from Squamish Nation to address the legislature. And then we will have our public service affirmation ceremony for 19 employees. So that's since our last affirmation ceremony, which was in February. So 19 oaths to come our way, hopefully all in unison. Following the ceremony, we will have the first reading of Bill 002, 2025, the Elections Act 2025. And after this, we will have the first reading of Bill 003, 2025, the Education, Health, and Social Development Amendment Act 2025. And finally, for tonight's agenda, we will hear the report on previous resolutions. Are there any questions for tonight's agenda from the legislators? Heichka, thank you so very, very much. I would now like to invite our legislatures to take 2 or 3 minutes to make their opening remarks for the fall 2025 legislative session, starting on my left to Legislature Tiesmelot, Kathy Genge.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody had a good summer. It's good to be back together again. And I'd like to welcome all our guests in the gallery. And that was a good meal from Kathy and Smeet. And thank you, the sisters, for drumming us in, or doing the table song. And thank you, son Bryce, for drumming us in. And hopefully this session will go really good. Thank you.
OCM Heichka, Legislature Taylor Baker.
Heichka Dayton for the feather, and Heichka Squeakquel. Good evening, everybody. For our guests and those that don't know me, my name is Taylor Baker. I'm a member of the Tsawwassen First Nations Executive Council and Legislature. First, I would like to thank the cooks, the drummers and singers for our first opening night. The meal was delicious. I also would like to welcome our guests from Squamish. It's a pleasure to have you join us this evening. My apologies, I couldn't join you for the meeting and the tour today. I have a 10-month-old, so she was keeping me on my toes today. So I wasn't able to join, but I hope you enjoyed the tour and the meeting, and just once again, thanks for joining us today. I'm also looking forward to this session. Like Kathy mentioned, I think it's going to be great and positive, and I'm looking forward to hearing about updates from major projects and also projects that we have going on in our own community. Since we last met, there's been a lot of progress going on with the new administration building planning and the blessing of the land that we did recently. So really looking forward to the session, and Haichka.
Haichka Legislature Taylor, Legislator Palihuia, Don Williams.
Haichka Squeaklesiam, Haichka Dayton for the feather. Yeah, my name's Don Williams. My ancestral name is Palihuia, and it's good to be sitting back at the table here with everybody. And even though we have a short session, I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody and comments and questions and everyone's input. And yeah, short and sweet. Thanks.
Haichka Palihuia, Legislator Hulkamatia, Louise Alm.
Haichka Squeakosiam. Welcome, everybody, especially welcome to our guests from Squamish. Very happy to have you. My apologies, I couldn't be there today, too. I was caring for my uncle. Yeah, so my apologies for that. And yeah, I'm very excited to be at the table again. Welcome to my fellow legislators and our Squeakle. And yeah, it was a wonderful meal. And I want to say welcome to our new staff that are here tonight. And can't wait to hear you swear in. That's always interesting. And very excited to do the work for our short session, this fall session in Haichka.
Haichka Legislator Hulkamatia, Legislator Kuyakuya, Andrea Jacobs.
Haichka Squeaklesiam, Haichka Dayton for the feather. Just want to welcome our guests from Squamish Nation. It's awesome that you're here to witness and hope the day went well. Just want to thank our drummers and singers and our caterers for this session. It's always great. Everybody steps up and comes together, and always look forward to that. Also to our Squeakle for keeping us all in line, and I know it's a big job to sit there and just to keep decorum. So Haichka to you as well. It was a busy summer. It was great. And listening to my son do the prayer, it was just so cool. I have to thank Tuaza First Nation for the wonderful programming for the employment program that went forward. We had some of our youth participate with our language and culture department, our archaeology, and in different areas with our elders, our youth, and it grows every year, and it shows. So so proud, and he's such a natural. Also, just wanted to take a moment to recognize Indigenous Veterans Day. I don't think we'll be meeting again, so which is happening on Saturday. So just for Tawasan members and member families, we'll be having our gathering on Saturday. So really proud because it'll be at our Elder Center, and we'll be having a memorial pole, and so. It gets bigger and bigger every year, and every year I feel like it just feels so special because we've been talking about a place to honor our vets. We haven't had a place like that, so going forward it means a lot to me and I know to members in our community. So hope to see everybody there, and I just wanted to take a moment to recognize that. And it's good to see everybody around the table. Welcome.
Oh, CM, thank you for that recognition for the Veterans Day. Legislator Kuyakuya, Legislator Spalautowit, Terry Splachton.
Haichka Squeakle, thank you for the runner. CM Nut Sietya, E Nuts Quilmoch. Oh, my honored friends, relatives, and fellow Indigenous people, Anta Spalautowit. My ancestral name is Spalautowit. Terry Splachton Tanashwanitamoth Nasquich. My English name is Terry Splachton. Aitnashquan Quanasi Quatsnala. I'm happy to see you folks. First, I would like to thank our youth for allowing us to use their space for our fall session. And I want to raise my hands to my older sister, Kwikimosat Angeline, for singing with me for the table song and to Dayton for our Hunkamin and prayer. And I'm very proud of you. You did a really good job. And for starting us in a good way and for being our feather runner. And thank you to our caterer. And as we open our 2025 fall legislative session, I want to take a moment to thank my fellow legislators, our executive council, staff, and community members who continue to contribute their time, voice, and energy to building strong future for Tawasin. Each agenda item tonight, from our new bills to the employee affirmation ceremony, reflects the growth and governance of our nation as we carry out the work our ancestors envisioned for us. I also want to extend a heartfelt welcome to our honored guests, the Squamish delegation. We are grateful that you have joined us this evening. Our nation shared deep roots along these waters and coastlines, and it is always meaningful when we come together in spirit of respect, learning, and continued relationship building. With that, I raise my hands to all of you here. Important work before us. May we continue this evening with focus, respect, and good hearts. One more thing, I also want to re-announce the Indigenous Veterans Day on Saturday at our respected Elder Center for the Indigenous Veterans Day. The event will start at 10 a.m. and I hope to see everybody there.
OCM Haitchka Legislature spill out to it. Legislator Sultanat Loretta Williams.
Good evening, everybody, and our guests from the Squamish Nation, and the staff, our people that are participating and listening to us again, fellow legislators. I'd like to acknowledge the caterers, because that's the main thing. That's the main reason why I show up, even though I'm late. And, you know, like usually it's sunny out in Tawasin. Got a question for the Squamish people. Did you guys bring the rain with you? Well, it usually is sunny out here. But, you know, like it's important, you know, like we're all here, and I hope we didn't displace the youth too much, because all the programs are planned in 1 month in advance. So, you know, like you could relay that message to the powers that be. And a couple of commercials. Dayton is not only our feather runner, but he's an amazing guitarist. Yeah, and you know, like if Bitterly Divine ever needs a blues guitarist, just a commercial. Yeah, but also, I'm going to try to keep my questions short, so give the opportunity to all the legislators to ask and speak, because I have a habit of asking too many questions. And also, same thing, I wrote down the memorial for our veterans. Our uncle Walter was the only one from Tawasin that died in the war. And Jimmy Nahaney went to France, and he looked for, you know, the graves of the Native veterans, and he found our uncle's grave. And then one of the nieces and her husband went to France a few months ago, and she located it, and, you know, so I think that's really super important, just to acknowledge. And Aichka, that's short and sweet, as short as I get.
Haitchka Legislature Sultanat Legislature Tehuilam Yalchiwans Bryce Williams.
OCM Haitchka Dayton for the feather, and good evening, everybody. My name's Bryce Williams. I'm an executive counselor with Tawasin First Nation, former chief. My ancestral name is Tehuilam. I shared that with I received that after my grandfather had that name, late Russell Williams. My Haida name, my ancestral name from up there, up north in Haida Gwaii, is Yothi ones. I share that with my uncle. First off, I want to say, lift my hands up to Dayton for his prayer, his opening prayer. That was super solid and really just seem to come out so naturally for me, Dayton, and I'm really proud of hearing that you're getting into learning Hulkamanum. Thank you to Kokimasat for providing the prayer to bless the food, and her sister. Yeah, I just want to say Haichka to everyone that's here tonight. I look forward to a productive session. Haichka to all of to my fellow legislators for being here, staff, our special guests from Squamish, and all of our members present that are here and online. Haichka to the cook for the cooks for the delicious meal. Kathy and Samit, it was really delicious. And yes, welcome to all of our new staff that are going to be taking part in the employee affirmation ceremony. It's great to see everybody being able to be here to take part in that. And yeah, Haichka to everybody for being here. I look forward to all the great work that's going to take place during this session. Osiam, Haichka.
Haichka Legislator Tchilam. Legislator Luxon, Trent Genge.
Thank you, Squeako. Thank you, Dayton, for the feather. I'd like to say the same remarks for Dayton for doing the prayer. It's nice to see the youth getting more involved in stuff like this. And it just shows the teachings that are going along on here on the reserve to promote this, and where the youth are stepping up to the plate to do it. But I'd like to welcome the Squamish Nation for being here, and it's just be nice being around the table with the legislators again. And I'd like to thank Terry and Angeline for singing the table song, and Bryce for drumming us in. And thank you, Squeako, for doing all the work, and the staff for putting all this together. And I hope it's going to be very informative sessions. So I'm just waiting to hear all the new stuff and new comments that will come out on this stuff. Hachka.
Haichka Legislator Luxon. Legislature Squamiah, Melinda Cassidy.
Haichka Dayton for the feather. I would like to start by welcoming our relatives from Squamish. Knowledge sharing, storytelling from nation to nation is like such an important tradition to keep up, and I hope you enjoyed your visit, and I look forward to following up on a tour of your guys' territory as well. I would also like to thank the cooks, drummers, singers, staff, and Dayton for being the feather runner and for the prayer. And welcome our new staff members. Thank everybody in attendance here and anybody who may be viewing online. I look forward to our session in front of us. Haichka.
Haichka Legislature Squamiah. Legislature Marianne Adams.
Haichka Squeakle CM and Haichka Dayton for the feather. It's very nice to hear all the kind sentiments around this table. I just want to also echo everyone and just thank the staff, the cooks, the cultural workers to do the prayers and songs. It's always so wonderful to start our sessions like that in our days and during our sessions. I also would like to welcome the Squamish delegation. Welcome to Tsawwassen First Nation. I look forward to also visiting your nation as well. And yeah, I just look forward to the session. Haichka CM.
Haichka Legislature Marianne. Legislature Laquolia Tia Williams.
Haichka Squeakle CM, Haichka Dayton for the feather. I'd like to express my appreciation to everyone joining us here in person, as well as those watching at home, and to all the new TFN employees. It's wonderful to see our community gathered once again to participate in the important work of our government. Since our last meeting, there's been an incredible amount of activity and engagement across our nation, from community gatherings to youth programming, cultural initiatives, and ongoing environmental stewardships. These efforts continue to demonstrate the strength and spirit of our people. Each event, conversation, and collaboration moves us forward, grounded in our values, culture, and shared vision as a modern treaty nation. And lastly, welcome to our delegation from Squamish. It's a privilege to host you here tonight. Our relationship with neighboring nations is an important one, built on mutual respect and learning, and the recognition that our work benefits from collaboration and shared understanding. Heichka.
Heichka Legislature Locolia. Dayton, I'll go, and then we'll pass it to the chief. Chamquat Tanasqui Talitzin Achtuasin. My ancestral name is Chamquat. My grandmother, Pearl Williams, was raised on the Mission Reserve, and her mother, Alice Irene Perkins, and then her grandmother, my grandmother's grandmother, was Chamquat, and she's from Squamish, and I'm proud to carry that name and be related to our Squamish relatives. So my grandfather, Isaac Williams, Tehuilam, my cousin here carries his name, and Elizabeth Point, my great-grandmother, connects me to the Musqueam relatives as well. I'm honored here to be the Squeakle for this legislature, and I look forward to the voices, the thoughts, the opinions, and the unity of the leadership of this table. This table has demonstrated diverse voices, unified voices, but always in two things: respect and for the good of our people. And I raise my hands to legislatures because this is hard work that we do, and you do it with such grace and wisdom, kindness and respect, that it makes difficult jobs worthy of going through and coming to the decisions that we need to do on behalf of our people and on behalf of our youth and our elders and our lands. Thank you for all the work that's put into moving this location to this, our legislators to this location, to staff, and thank you to our Squamish relatives for coming to share questions and learn about the work that we're doing. I'm sure that we learn just as much from you as you learn from us. I apologize that I was unable to be there today, but I know that you were in good hands, and all the questions that you might have had were routed to the right people. I see a few familiar faces that I had worked with for many, many years ago, and Nancy and Sheldon, so it's good to see your familiar faces again. And I look forward to a productive session, and it's been, a lot of work has happened since March, since we sat last, and I cannot believe that we're already in November. Things are just flying by. So with that, I get to talk whenever I want, so I think I'll now invite Chief Squamosat, Laura Cassidy, Legislature Laura Cassidy, to share her opening remarks. Chief?
Heichka Squeakle and Heichka Dayton for the feather. I think all the good words have already been shared around the table. I can echo some of them, is that I'm glad to be here with all of legislature again, and with our Squeakle, who keeps us in line. And a big thank you to the staff who've helped put all this together. I appreciate all the work you guys do. And I just want to also echo Dayton. Just so proud of our youth and everything that Dayton's done, and just watching him like in the play in our longhouse. It was so awesome to see him participating, and I also got to see him. He is a really good guitar player, and he also performed at the Barnside Festival. Him and some of our other youth. I know my nephew was in there too, and it's just so great to see how our youth are just they're just amazing, doing really amazing. And just seeing our high graduation rates, just we're having so many more grads, and now I hear we have a lot more registered into post-secondary courses, and just makes me proud to see how we're moving forward with our future leaders. Yeah, and I want to apologize to the Squamish for not being there this afternoon. I had my granddaughter actually, and she fell asleep on me just before I was going out the door, so I had to cancel. But she was good medicine for me today. I just have to be thankful that we were able to move the session here, because the reason for it was for the rec center was being used for my uncle's funeral. And I appreciate how everybody accommodated our family and letting us have the services at the rec center. A huge thank you, and I really appreciate everything, for the staff or the youth working around this legislature. I had more to say, but I can't remember what it was. It's just been a busy few days for me, and oh yeah, and I also want to say I'm looking forward to hearing the new employees swear in, and as some have said, it's neat to see how you guys will all be coordinated when you read out your thing. Yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that. So just Heichka to everybody here on the table. Thank you.
Heichka Chief, Heichka Hesapka, to all the legislatures for your thoughtful remarks. I always enjoy listening to your opening remarks. Now let's move on to our first formal agenda item, and that's I would like to now call upon Chief Swamiset to introduce a motion to invite our honored guests, Councillor Johnny Williams, CCM Ray Natraoro, and the Senior Advisor of Territory and Culture at the Squamish First Nation, to address the legislature. Both Councillor Williams and CCM Ray Natraoro are respected members of the Squamish Nation's Constitution Working Group, and we are very happy to have them with us this evening. Chief? Legislature Chief?
Heichka Dayton for the feather. Okay, motion to invite honored guests to address the legislature. Whereas the Tsawwassen legislature welcomes a delegation from, I don't know if I should try to pronounce that. I'll just say Squamish First Nation because I don't want to dishonor the name. To witness a November 6, 2025 Legislature Assembly meeting. Therefore, be it moved that Tsawwassen Legislature invites Councillor Johnny Williams and Sayam Ray Natero, I probably pronounced that wrong, of the Squamish Nation to address the Legislature Assembly.
Heichka Chief, thank you for that. Do I have a mover? Legislature Taylor Baker. Do I have a seconder? Legislature Halka Mattia. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, legislatures. All right. Councillor Johnny Williams and CCM Ray Natraoro, I invite you up now to address the Tsawwassen legislature. Heichka OCM. And just as a word of warning, please wait for the feather runner before you speak.
OCM, Siocha, Johan Hart, Squalwins, Kunsquatchnomiap, Tinachai Stalkum, Tisquile, Titsits, Hartens, Squalwins, Quisashits, Tinuchnewen, Nes Hopmischit, Ne Tuchlam, des Hopmisch Melch, Chiquamentomiap, Nawa Outsam, Tinachai Stalkum, Tisquile, Titsits, Minwaochit, the Tate Sam, Tinachai State Sab, Hartens, Squalwins, Quis H. Nuchwas, the Kushamans Naj, Chinquat, Nathan Sequatos Chit, the Kayachtan Tanoyap, Ne Tuchlams, the Huay Ochumeoch, Tuchlam the Snaz, Nathan Sata, Nathan Solseo, Quis Naz, Chimquat, not the Qua Hamalchtan Capelano, Ochumeoch, Nath Chuchwa Ansequatos, the Kayachtan Tano, Hart and Scolowins. Hart and Scolowins, it Ansequatos, now a mode not the type, it CEO, Eamon Nancy, Chicomantomia, Siaman Siite, Ait Scolowins, and Natsamat, Minwachit, Museum.
Holt Squal, Johnny Queen Sna, Tanachin Tla, Equapsum, Skohomish Oath, Onwanas and Squalwin, Chincomantomiap with Chitty Seats. Hello, my name's Johnny Williams, or Jonathan, but the only person who calls me that is my mom. I am now a member of our Squamish Nation Council. I was invited here previously actually as the youth member for the Constitution Working Group that I am on previously, but now since I am on council, I may be working with the Constitution in a different capacity. So I'm now invited here to do protocol as a counselor, but I was already invited before as a Constitution. I just wanted to, as a youth member for the Constitution, I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you for the invitation, for inviting the Squamish people to be able to come and meet with your executive council, to be able to learn a bit about the process you guys went through in creating your Constitution. I wanted to acknowledge that today we are here to seek and to work with external relations who respect our Squamish values and inherent rights as Indigenous people. We value relationships initiated in good faith and maintained through collaboration, meaningful and engagement, and accountability. We cherish our relationships with our Indigenous neighbors. We have been working on the Constitution for just over a year now, and the Squamish Nation people have called for a strategic plan from 2022 to 2026, and so we will be working on the Constitution for the next few years for our people. I just wanted to again acknowledge and say thank you guys for helping us and for giving us the opportunity to be able to listen and learn about your guys' process in creating the Constitution. This will be a big step in us moving forward. It'll be important and it will aid the Squamish Nation people in asserting our rightful place as decision makers with the power to influence and control what happens on our waters, lands, and in delivery of quality service for our Squamish people. And with that, I just wanted to raise my hands and say again, Chincomantomiap. I'm grateful for you guys, and I'm thankful for you for hosting the Squamish Nation and inviting us to your legislation assembly session. I forgot to say at the start, but I also wanted to acknowledge Dayton for coming forward and doing the prayer and sharing his language. As a youth who also went through a lot to be able to learn a bit about our culture, it's nice to be able to see a nice strong youth, a young man, taking the time to be able to learn more about his culture and his ways. So, thank you. Oh, and I forgot, in the language, Sisya, my uncle here, he was saying that Chumquat, or your ancestral name, is one that is also carried by someone in Homolchilson, or also known as Capilano. She is actually his auntie, and it'd be my great auntie, or in our culture, it'd be like my grandmother. And she's my grandfather's first cousin, and she also carries the same name as well. So we are family, and we wanted to acknowledge that as well, that we have a relationship with someone within your council as well. Thank you.
Heitke, so much for sharing those words, and really appreciate that. Before you leave the podium there, the chief would like to gift you some blankets. And thank you for sharing your words and your times. And it's good to know the relatives that I have. And maybe during the break, I'll share with you a little bit more about the journey of my name and why that came about. But before you leave as well, I would like to acknowledge that Tehuilam, Legislator Tehuilam would like to say something.
Awesome, Heitke, for the presentation and being here, and it's just awesome to hear the language spoken from yourself, and just very humbled and honored to see a young man like yourself being involved in government. I started at a young age as well, so thank you, and my hands go up to you for that. I just wanted to mention that I was part of the meeting earlier with the Squamish delegation and TFN staff, and I just wanted to raise my hands up to our staff, Quintiltonot, our CAO, and Andrew Bach, Director of Territory Management, thanking them for being there. Quintiltonot made a great presentation on the Constitution, and Andrew being there was very helpful, him being there since the beginning of the steps leading to treaty. And so yeah, thanking them for their contributions, as well as being able to be there to provide the answers to a lot of the questions that were asked at that meeting. So thank you for being there and participating and asking those questions, and taking a tour of our lands and learning more about who we are as Tsawwassen people. Heitke, Osia.
Heitke, thank you so much, Legislature Tehuilam. And I don't know if you noticed that when he introduced himself, he's also related to you, because we come from the same family. And so you have that connection with Legislature Tehuilam as well. So Heitke, thank you so much for sharing your words. Thank you so much for being here, for bringing your delegation, for building that relationship of sharing important work, no matter how we use that work for our respective nations. Thank you for coming here and witnessing the work that we're doing here. We appreciate that you're here and you're observing and supporting us. And we hope that the nation-to-nation relationship that we have from a governance perspective continues, but also from the familial perspective continues and it strengthens, because as we unite, we are stronger as one. And so Heitke, thank you so much for being here, OCM. All right, your job is not quite done, Chief Squamosat. I'm going to call upon you again for our next item, which is our public service affirmation ceremony. I'd like to call upon Chief Squamosat and our Human Resources Manager, David, for the public service affirmation ceremony.
Heitke, Squeakle CM. Under Section 14 of the Government Employees Act, we ask all new employees to participate in a Tsawwassen public service affirmation ceremony. The ceremony must include a pledge of honor, respect, and confidentiality. The purpose of the ceremony is to ensure that the employee understands that they are making a commitment to Tsawwassen First Nation, and that the employee pledges to honor and respect Tsawwassen members, history, and culture. To ensure that employees understand the importance of confidentiality when under employment with Tsawwassen First Nation. To provide the employee with a basic working knowledge of the governance structure of Tsawwassen First Nation necessary for their employment. To provide the employee with a basic working knowledge of the Tsawwassen First Nation community and its history and culture. And finally, to provide the employees with acts, plans, policies, and other documents with critical information about the goals of Tsawwassen government and rules and expectations governing their employment. At this point, I would like to ask Chief Cassidy to say a few words before we continue.
Hitchcock Dayton for the feather. Thank you, David, and welcome to our new employees. The Tsawwassen people have exercised sovereign authority over Tsawwassen lands for thousands of years. The Tsawwassen people now exist as a part of two worlds, traditional and modern day. On the treaty effective date, April 3rd, 2009, we asserted our inherent right to self-government and instituted a system where our two worlds can coexist. One of these laws requires that new employees participate in an affirmation ceremony and make a public service pledge to Tsawwassen First Nation and to Tsawwassen members. By making the pledge, the new employees acknowledge their responsibilities and affirm their intent to work to the best of their abilities on behalf of Tsawwassen First Nation. Hitchcock.
Hitchcock, Chief Cassidy. Most of these new employees with us tonight who were hired since last legislative assembly. There are a couple, I believe, whom we planned on coming that will have to attend next session. I'll ask each of these new employees to step forward and give a little wave before they walk over to meet the chief to sign their oaths as they give a brief introduction. And this is their cue. If you could walk over towards that corner under that speaker, please. And Lindsay has the script for you. Just in that corner. It's going to be difficult to get it all on the camera, but hopefully it's all captured. Thank you. So I will be giving some introductions, and we'll be starting with Thomas Page. Thomas is our new utilities foreperson. He brings over 10 years municipal waterworks experience, including with the City of Surrey and the Clearbrook Waterworks District. He is EOCP certified level 2 water distribution. Welcome, Thomas. Next we have Matt Dudley. Matt is our new Public Works Supervisor. He's following the completion of his BA degree at University of Fraser Valley. Matt worked with the City of Surrey for almost 10 years prior to joining us. Welcome, Matt. Welcome, Matt. Sorry. Miles Charlie. Miles is our new municipal maintenance and infrastructure planner. He is a member of the Hawkshaw Douglas First Nation. He has 15 years of experience as a journeyman millwright. Welcome, Miles. Lindsay Frederickson is our new manager of education. She has a Master's of Education from SFU and over 17 years of experience in classroom teaching, district leadership, and curriculum development. Welcome, Lindsay. Michelle Spence is our new elder outreach and care worker. She's a member of the Broken Head Ojibwe Nation in Manitoba. She has an extensive experience as a personal care provider and has completed her licensed practical nurse training. Welcome, Michelle. Peggy Lee is our new senior accountant, and she brings over 15 years of full cycle accounting experience. She has a bachelor's degree in accounting. Welcome, Peggy. Arshpreet Katra is our, where is Arshpreet? There's Arshpreet. Is our new senior property tax and utilities accountant. She has a bachelor's degree in business administration and over 10 years of experience working in a municipal government. Welcome, Arshpreet. Hannah Goosen is our new legal assistant. And she has over 10 years of legal assistance experience with the City of Vancouver. She also has a Bachelor of Human Kinetics degree. Welcome, Hannah. Next, we have Gabby Olivares. She brings over 5 years of strategic communications experience, including working with Métis Nation of British Columbia. She has a BA in communication and a minor in business administration. Welcome, Gabby. Charissa Loney is a respite worker and joining our family services team. She's actually been working with us in a similar role as a contractor for about 4 years before joining us full-time. And she has a linguistics degree. Welcome, Charissa. Shannon Dignard is our new outreach worker. She's a member of the Saging Nation. She completed the medical office assistant and pharmacy technician program at VCC. She has extensive related experience, including most recently at the Fraser Health and Indigenous Health Primary Wellness Clinic. Welcome, Shannon. Joy O'Hara is a respite worker. She also has been working in a similar role for about 4 years as a contractor before joining us full-time. And welcome, Joy. Amy Lynn China is also a respite house worker, and she's a member of the Moose Cree Nation. She was previously in the administrative support field for 10 years before joining us in this role. Welcome, Amy Lynn. Wanda John is our new child and family services worker. She's a member of the Kihiwan Nation. Prior to joining us, she was part of the Vancouver Coastal Health team for over 2 years, and she has a Master's of Fine Arts. Welcome, Wanda. Deidre Alec is our new Emergency and Safety Response Coordinator. She's a member of the Chiem Nation. She has held numerous department leadership roles within her nation over the past 7 years and has an Occupational First Aid Level 3 certification. Welcome, Deidre. Amy Abdul Malak is our Planner 1. Amy has previous planning experience working with Indigenous communities. Amy has a Master of Natural Resources and Environmental Studies degree and a Bachelor of Science in Geography. Welcome, Amy. And last but not least, we have Gary Singh. Gary is our new tenant outreach worker. His experience as an outreach team lead at Blood Ties Forward Directions Center, as a housing support worker, and also at, as a housing support worker, he also worked at Wingetting Aboriginal Corporation. It equips him well for this role. He has a diploma in social health studies. Welcome, Gary. Hopefully I haven't missed anyone. Good. So now you've all got your words nearby. And as I mentioned previously, I'll try to do it slow and steady and together all the way through to the end. And I will start you off 1, 2, 3, and then you start. So 1, 2, 3. Fantastic, fantastic. This concludes this session's new employee affirmation ceremony. Hajka.
Welcome, everyone. It is always such a pleasure to see our new staff and hear about their skills, their roles, and be able to offer them the lovely cedar box, acknowledging the start of their time with us. And even though some of them have started many months ago, it's good to have that collective commitment to our people, and to be swearing that oath in front of all of us that are witnessing you with that oath. So thank you so very, very much. Thank you, David, for our offering that ceremony. It's always a joy to watch and see how synchronized in and out of synchronization that the group has. 19 people, it's a lot, so that was great. Thank you, everyone, for that. Before I offer a bit of a break, I want to acknowledge someone who's been with our organization for a period of time. And I've watched this individual, we've all watched this individual grow and become a deeply passionate employee for our nation, to make sure that our voice is heard, understand our treaty deeply, and advocate for different types of work that needs to go forward to ensure that we have a government that is based and founded in policy, and so that we have the guidance to make good decisions. And I want to acknowledge this individual because they really have demonstrated what it means to not just be an ally, but an accomplice of our people, and really embrace this individual as not just as an employee, but as a friend and someone that I enjoy doing work with when we're advocating for our nation. And that person is Twyla, because Twyla has now been promoted from the manager of the role to Director of Strategic Initiatives. And this role is an important role, and the capacity and the commitment and the depth of understanding and the relationships that she's built with our community, we have no doubt that she will be taking on this new role with the wisdom that she has gathered from each of us, that she has learned from our people. And so I just wanted to lift her up and say thank you very much for the work that you've done, and congratulations on your new role as Director of Strategic Initiatives. With that, I think I will offer a 12-minute break. I like picking random times. 12-minute break. There's snacks downstairs, refreshments, bathrooms are just down the hall, and as you know, I'll be calling you to gather up in about 12 minutes. Hajka, take your break. Thank you. Welcome back, legislatures. That was a lovely break. I think I licked all the icing off of the carrot cake. That was a really good icing. Our next business, introduction of the Elections Act. I would like to call upon Chief Squamish, Chief Cassidy, to speak about Bill 002-2025, the Election Act, and then read the motion to introduce the bill. Chief?
Okay. Hitchcock for the feather. Okay, since treaty came into effect in 2009, the Tsawwassen First Nation Election Act has played a pivotal role in supporting our nation's longstanding traditions of strong political participation and good governance. Over the past 16 years, the Act has guided us through 6 general elections, 3 by-elections, and helped our nation to bring strong and capable leaders into our legislative table. While our election process has served us well, we also know that there is always room for our government to learn, grow, and improve. In the fall of 2022, the Tsawwassen Legislature introduced a resolution that called on Executive Council to consider amendments to the Election Act that would eliminate the need for by-elections for early legislature vacancies. While the goal of this resolution was to improve time and cost efficiency by streamlining the by-election process, it also prompted us to take a broader look at the Election Act and to see where other improvements could be made. Guided by the legislature's direction to conduct extensive engagement with members, our government has spent the past year gathering member feedback through family meetings, community engagements, and workshops. The deep engagement with members has helped us to craft a new version of the Election Act that reflects how members want to see our elections conducted in the future. I'm excited to see how the proposed amendments will enhance accessibility and efficiency of our political processes by introducing electronic voting, streamlining by-elections, and modernizing our campaigning process. I believe this is a piece of legislature that TFN can be incredibly proud of. It has been shaped by members, for members, and stands as a testament for our collective spirit of self-determination, collaboration, and deep commitment to good governance. I look forward to hearing the discussion of this bill around the legislative table, and I will now read the motion to introduce it. Motion to introduce Bill 002-2025, the Elections Act 2025. Whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature, through the resolution R006-2022, resolution to request amendments to the Election Act, called on Executive Council to examine amendments to the Election Act concerning by-elections caused by early vacancies. And whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature, through resolution R005-2024, resolution to approve in principle the proposal to repeal and replace the Election Act, draft bill to enact the Election Act 2025, subject to community consultation and to review at a community meeting of Tsawwassen members, approved in principle the proposal to repeal and replace the Election Act following consultation with members. And whereas and whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature, through resolution R00-2024, resolution to approve member consultation on the Election Act amendments proposed by resolution 005-2024, set out extensive member consultation requirements on the proposed Election Act amendments. And whereas the Tsawwassen government has conducted extensive member engagement to fulfill the consultation requirements set out in the resolution 006-2024 or 2024, and the legislature consultation requirements set out in the Election Act. And whereas the proposed amendments will, through streamlining the by-election process and enabling the use of electronic voting, enable Tsawwassen First Nation to continue its tradition of strong self-governance, robust political participation, and capable leadership. Therefore, it be moved that Bill 002-2025, the Elections Act 2025, be introduced for the Tsawwassen Legislature's consideration, debate, and approval. And I just want to acknowledge all the hard work that the staff have put into this. I appreciate everything that you guys have done. Thank you. Hechka.
Hechka, Chief Swamasat. The chief has moved the motion. Do I have a seconder? Legislature Halkamatia seconded it. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? All right. One opposition. Motion carried. Thank you, legislatures. This motion is now tabled and introduced. Now that it's introduced, I would like to call upon Mary Childs, General Counsel, and Connor Hasegawa, Policy Analyst, to give a brief overview of Bill 002-2025. Connor? Hasegawa, did I say it? Excellent. Thank you, Connor. Hechka. Mary sent you up there by yourself?
She did.
Okay, well.
Yes, but she's close by. I think
All right, excellent.
Jump over
Hechka.
and grab her if need be. I just want to say, Hechka, thank you, Dayton, for the feather. Really appreciate it and really appreciate the opportunity to be up here and speak about the Election Act. So yeah, my name is Connor Hasegawa. I'm a policy analyst here at TFN, and today I'm going to be walking you through the proposed Elections Act 2025. And yes, it is now elections with an S. That is not a typo. That is to help us distinguish from the old version of the act, but it doesn't mean anything more than that. It's just a name change. So I'm going to start off with the clicker. And it's not clicking. Is there a way to manually move to the next slide? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so we're going to start off with a quick overview here just to walk you through what today's presentation entails. So we're going to start off by talking a little bit about the background behind the act, just a quick reminder as to why these amendments are being proposed, as well as the work that's gone into the amendment so far and the amendment process itself, which is unique, being different from other pieces of TFN legislation. I'm then going to talk about the engagement, because that really has been the focal point of the work we've done for the past year. I'll talk about the Election Act changes themselves, and then I'll cap off by talking about next steps, the things that will need to happen should this act be approved today. There's a few more things we're going to need to do in the near future before the 2026 election. So click again, and it works this time, which is great. So starting off with a little bit of background information. And, oh, maybe it doesn't, oh, there we go. Okay, sorry, it's Jen is the magic behind the clicker. Okay, so this work is really born out of the 2022 TFN general election. So that general election was the first under TFN's new 4-year election cycle, the 6th general election overall. And shortly after that election took place, there was an early resignation from the Tsawwassen legislature that required TFN to hold a by-election very, very early on in January 2023. Now, shortly after that election took place, we had the first legislative session of the term, the fall 2022 session. And at that session, the 2022 election was a big topic of discussion. There was a lot of discussion around the early vacancy issue, as well as some other things like the campaign advertising process, whether TFN could explore electronic voting, just general discussion of the election overall. And so out of that, R006-2022 resolution to request amendments to the Election Act was introduced. And this was a resolution that called on Executive Council to examine amendments to the Election Act that would eliminate the need for a by-election if someone resigned within 30 days, and then rather than running the by-election, we would just appoint the runner-up from the general election instead. So that is the basis for all this work and how we got started, really driven by the legislative table and the resolution. And next slide. The next thing I just want to touch on quickly is the amendment process for the Election Act, because it is unique, it is more involved, and it has a built-in level of member consultation. The reason for this is because it is a critically important piece of legislation, and the goal is to make sure that it can't be quickly amended or unilaterally amended, that if there needs to be changes, it needs to be well thought out and to go through membership first, and that's what we've done. So this process begins with EC introducing proposed amendments at a high level through a resolution to the TFN Legislature. So once the legislature has had time to consider that resolution, they decide whether they agree with the changes in principle. And if they do, they approve the resolution and at the same time decide on a level of consultation. So this is what happened in last fall's legislative session. After the consultation is approved, TFN government goes out and consults with members. The amendments are also discussed at a meeting open to TWASN members. And then once all that is done, the feedback comes back to EC. They decide whether they want to proceed with the bill or not. In this case, they have. And then we introduce it as per normal. We go to the legislature. We use the 3 readings process. And yeah, we go through the normal amendment process. But the key idea here is that there is a lot of consultation that's required beforehand, and it is really a more thought out process than other pieces of legislation. And next slide. So this is just a quick reminder of the timeline, because we have been working on this for quite a while, and there are still some more things to come, even if this is approved. So like I said, this really stems from the October 2022 TFN general election and the fall legislative session that happened immediately afterwards. We then had a follow-up workshop in the fall of 2023 where you, the legislature, provided some valuable feedback on what you wanted to see in the act, really helped us scope things out and see what the direction should be. And then in fall of 2024, we came with a draft version of the bill that was approved by resolution, subject to extensive member consultation. And then throughout a good chunk of this year, really starting in March and then continuing on up until September of 2025, TFN has been conducting engagement with members, and I'll talk more about that engagement in a moment. And that brings us to today, where it's now November 2025. The Elections Act is formally been tabled for formal approval. And then should it be approved, we will need to be looking at finalizing regulations in the spring of 2026, ideally as early in the year as possible, so that we have time to get prepared for the October 2026 TFN general election. And it is wild to think that that is less than a year away now. So we can move on. So the next thing I want to talk about is engagement. And I want to start off by mentioning that even prior to this year, there was extensive engagement that was done to help inform that draft version of the bill that came to you in 2024. So we did workshops with EC in 2023. We did engagements off lands. We did a legislator workshop, AC workshop, and then we had a big workshop at the members gathering in 2024. And I'll talk about the results of that a little bit more in a bit. So that's kind of the engagement that happened even before we came with the draft version of the bill. And then when we did have the draft version of the bill approved, R006-2024 was introduced. And that was a resolution that outlined a series of specific engagement requirements that you, the legislature, wanted to see. So it was kind of split between types of engagement, so community meetings, family meetings, virtual meetings, engagement with youth and elders, engagement off lands, and then also some tools and techniques that you wanted to see used, so things like surveys, engagement summaries, prizes to encourage participation, in events that allowed members who are on and off lands to provide feedback simultaneously. So that has really been the focus of the past year's work. We can move to the next slide. And yeah, so this is a list of the engagements that have taken place in 2025. So we held 9 family meetings between March and May. We did an on-lands engagement in May. We did engagements in Bellingham and Verdun and a virtual engagement as well. I believe combined between all those engagements, we spoke to, I think, 79 different members. Some of those members were so dedicated they even came out and spoke to us on more than one occasion. So we had some really fantastic feedback there. We also did some other engagement throughout kind of the summer. So we engaged a bit with youth and with elders. We did a follow-up engagement at this most recent members gathering. No workshop this time, but an info table with a draft version of the bill that could be reviewed by members. We also went to Advisory Council on September 29th. The reason we went to Advisory Council a bit earlier than normal is because the Election Act actually has a requirement that the bill be discussed at a meeting that's open to Tsawwassen members. And given that Advisory Council is that type of meeting and that it's generally well attended, it was determined that would be the best venue combined with the members gathering to get feedback. The other bit of engagement was the electronic voting survey that was held starting at the members gathering and then carrying on for another couple of weeks. So you may remember at the members gathering, there was a vote on the land use plan that was introduced. So Executive Council provided direction that that vote should be held both in person at the members gathering, but also electronically for the 2-week period following the members gathering. And that was done both to increase accessibility to the vote, but also to give members an opportunity to kind of trial electronic voting, see what they thought of it, and test it out in kind of real world conditions. So to get feedback on how members felt about that, we held a survey, and I'll talk about the results of that in a moment. But yeah, so a lot of engagement. One other thing I want to really highlight is all of the proposed amendments are on TFN's Let's Gather or Social Pinpoint Project site, so any member can go on there as that's part of TFN's larger engagement framework. All the engagement summaries are there as well, so all of the information is very accessible to anyone who is interested. And we can go to the, oh, perfect. So what did we hear from member engagement? Well, we heard a ton, and I won't be able to cover all of it in this presentation. But basically what we've done is we've taken the feedback we've heard and we've turned it into a series of summary reports. So the first report was actually presented to you last year, but we've brought it back as kind of a refresher, and that was the feedback we heard at the members gathering workshop in 2024. So that's the kind of first volume on the left. The second document, the blue one, covered the feedback from the family meetings and the community meetings that took place in the spring. And then the final volume covered the kind of feedback we heard towards the end. So a little bit from youth and elders, final feedback from the members gathering, the advisory council meeting, and then of course the electronic voting survey. So I'd encourage you, if you get the opportunity, especially after today, before second reading, to take a look, see what members had to say. Like I said, there was a ton of feedback. What I will do is on the next slide, I just have some of the key takeaways from the different engagements. So some of the things we heard from the members gathering workshop in 2024, we heard a lot of valuable feedback on members on things they wanted to see in terms of legislator and candidate education and training. They also provided us with information saying that they really wanted to have more information about the candidates in particular and the election process as well. And then another key takeaway is the members who were at that members gathering and participated in the workshop indicated, most of them, that they were in support of electronic voting. In terms of what was important in the electronic voting process, members cited the benefits of accessibility, making it easier to vote, but also cited security as an important consideration if TFN is to move forward with electronic voting. So that covers the members gathering. In terms of some highlights from the family and community meetings that were held earlier this year, members were overall very supportive of the steps being introduced to reduce the number of unnecessary or low impact by-elections, especially the measures around early vacancies received basically unanimous support. The majority of members we spoke to were in favor of electronic voting, but again, the main considerations were kind of security, but also the benefits of accessibility. And then when it came to updates to campaign advertising language, members were supportive of introducing elements to make it easier or clearer to address electronic communications, things like social media. So a lot of positive feedback there as well. In terms of what we kind of heard towards the end of the year, and especially through the electronic voting survey. So this was a survey that was given to anyone who participated in the land use plan vote to try and get some feedback on how they felt about using the voting system. So most of the members who responded to our survey and had used the electronic voting system said they had a positive experience. They found that the system was easy to access, easy to use, and that the instructions provided were clear. No one reported any technical difficulties, and everyone we spoke to indicated that they felt their vote was secure and private. 3/4 of the respondents in the survey were supportive of using electronic voting in future elections. And in terms of what we kind of heard at those other end-of-year engagements, when we spoke with some youth, elders, and at the members gathering, feedback was generally positive, and members were supportive of the changes being proposed. So we can move on to the changes themselves. So there's really kind of 4 goals with the Election Act updates. So the first goal is to reduce the number of low-impact by-elections. So those are by-elections and elections that are held close together or perhaps very late in the term. The second goal of this set of updates is to enable electronic voting. The third is to update our campaign advertising language because it is really focused on kind of paper mail and postage. And then the final bit is to do some housekeeping amendments to improve clarity in the act. And that probably actually makes up the bulk of the changes, but they're not really going to be felt by candidates or voters or anything like that. So they're really behind the scenes changes. So we can move on to talk about by-elections. So there's a few different changes related to by-elections that are being proposed, and I want to start by talking about the early vacancy provisions. So this is the language that directly addresses the resolution introduced in the fall of 2022 that kicked all this work off. So what the new version of the Election Act says now is under Section 5.5, it says that a by-election for a vacancy in the office of legislator that occurs within 45 days of an election must only be held if that vacant office cannot be filled in accordance with Section 6, which addresses early vacancies. And I will touch on that process in a moment. I just want to highlight 2 things. So first, this only applies to vacancies in the office of legislator. For chief, we would still have a by-election. And then the second part is the original resolution had proposed 30 days. After doing a bit of research, we changed that to 45 days. The reason being that if we look at some of the past examples of when legislators have resigned, some of them have come slightly outside of 30 days. So we've proposed 45 to try and capture all of those historic instances. In terms of how the early vacancy appointment process is proposed to work, so it's addressed in Section 6, and this is a kind of a paraphrased explanation, but if a legislator vacancy occurs in the first 45 days after an election, the runner-up from the most recent general election is eligible to fill the vacancy. The CAO would then notify that runner-up and invite them to fill the vacancy. The runner-up has 72 hours to accept, and if they do so, they're declared elected. And if they either decline or do not accept within 72 hours, the CAO then goes to the next person on the list, and this continues so on until someone accepts, or in the very unlikely scenario that we run out of runner-ups, we will have to hold a by-election. But I don't think we really expect that to happen. So that's the early vacancies part, but there are some other proposals for changes to the by-election system, because there are some other instances where we can have situations where we are forced to hold back-to-back by-elections that won't be particularly impactful. So the first change that's being proposed is actually around the window for holding by-elections, and that is because it has been proven very challenging to meet in the past. So right now it says in the Election Act that if there is a vacancy in the legislature, that a by-election needs to be held within 90 days of the vacancy. So as I mentioned, that is a difficult timeline to meet. It's also much shorter than what other governments are doing. When we look provincially and federally, it's 6 months. When we look at local governments, it is not a fixed time, but it is closer to 6 months than it is to 90 days. So what we have proposed here is that rather than 90 days, we require that a by-election be held within 180 days of a vacancy, and also clarify that that by-election should be held on a Saturday, because that is consistent with when TFN holds its general elections. Now, I do want to note that 180 days is the maximum window. Executive Council can still determine the by-election should be held sooner if that makes sense. The goal here is really just to build in some flexibility, because in the past we've seen issues arise around things like the winter office closure and summer vacations and stuff like that, and it can be very difficult in some instances to work around that 90-day window. So that is the first change. The second change being proposed addresses vacancies very late in the legislative term. So right now, TFN's Election Act says that if there is a vacancy in the final 6 months of the term, that TFN does not hold a by-election and instead keeps that seat vacant until the general election. And the reason for that is by the time you organize and run a by-election, get someone elected, it's already going to be basically time for the next election. Another thing to keep in mind is that the TFN legislature stops meeting in the spring, and our elections now occur in the fall. And that means we still have a situation where 6 months before October is April, and we can end up in instances where someone, let's say, vacates their seat from the legislature. It's perhaps late March or early April. It's more than 6 months out, but the legislature has already stopped meeting, and we have to hold a by-election. So what is being proposed to address this is rather than base the window for not holding by-elections on 6 months, we instead go to January 1st in the year of an election. This is what other governments with fixed election dates similar to ours do. So they would, after January 1st, EC would decide whether or not it made sense to hold a by-election. In all likelihood, it would not. But if for some reason, for example, there was a important legislative initiative and EC wanted to have the full table there, they could still do so. But the goal here is to really just eliminate the possibility of having unnecessary late by-elections and to allow for some flexibility at the same time. So that is the second change. The next couple of changes are a little bit confusing. They're closely related. So right now, in Section 10.2 of the Election Act, there is another scenario in which we have to hold back-to-back by-elections, and that would occur if someone who is already on the legislature runs in a by-election for a vacant chief office. So let's say, for some reason, chief vacates the office, someone who's a legislator now is allowed to run for that. If they do run for it and win, then they're elected to chief, and we have to hold a second by-election straight away to fill the newly vacated legislator seat. Now, obviously, we don't want to be holding back-to-back by-elections. So what's been proposed to address this issue is that if this scenario should play out and a sitting legislator is elected chief, that rather than hold a by-election, we would have the legislature appoint someone to fill the vacancy. The process for doing that would be detailed by regulation, but the goal is to do this so that it would be quicker and more cost-efficient than running an election that would likely have very low turnout, given that it was a by-election and also the second election in a row. The final change being proposed is the opposite scenario. It is something that we don't ever expect to happen, but it is written into the Election Act now, and we figured it was best to just address it at the same time. And that is the unusual scenario where someone who is already chief decides to run for legislator in a by-election and wins. So if that is the case, the same thing happens. The chief becomes a legislator, and we have a second by-election for chief. Obviously, that is very unlikely to happen, but it's already written there. So what has been proposed to address this is that the requirement be that if someone is already a chief and they want to run for legislator for some reason, that they would have to resign first before doing so. This would allow us to run both by-elections simultaneously and get them both out of the way at once, rather than running them back to back. So that is the proposed changes for by-elections, and I apologize, I know that was a lot. That is definitely the most complicated part of this presentation. So we can move on to electronic voting. So when I was mentioning the kind of goals of the Election Act, the second is to enable electronic voting. As for what's in the Election Act itself, it's really straightforward. It's just three different things. So the first is that electronic voting is allowed, but not required. The second is that Executive Council has the authority to make regulations respecting electronic voting. And the third thing that is in there, and this is a new addition since the last draft in response to member feedback, is that we have included some high-level principles for what should be in an electronic voting system. So throughout the engagement period, one thing that came up over and over was that members were keen on the idea about electronic voting because of the accessibility possibilities, but they had concerns about things like security. So what we've proposed for the Act is that we have a requirement that we have these principles like an electronic voting system used must have security that protects the integrity of the election, that it must have a process to verify who voters are, and that it has things like auditing procedures. So these are high-level principles. They're fundamental and should be a part of any electronic voting system, but they're not so prescriptive as to lock us into one system or another. They're just good principles that should always be there. So that's pretty much it for what's in the Act. The rest of this is really made up by the regulation, and I want to note that the regulations are in draft form. They still need to go to EC, but I wanted to provide some indication of what is likely to be in them. So as for what is in the regulations, that's where you're going to see basically a higher level of detail. So you're going to see things like process requirements, so things like voter ID requirements, the length of the voting period, some principles around ballot design, things like that. You're also going to see some more detailed requirements for the system itself. So it'll say things like the system has to have something in place to prevent someone from voting more than once. It has to be able to generate reports at key milestones. It needs to be able to operate during periods of high demand. So it's really similar to the principles, but just a lot more detail. And then the final bit of it is that the regulation will give the election officer the authority to establish rules for using the system. And that is like the final piece of the puzzle. That is kind of the most granular level of detail. And it is the role of the election officer in the system itself. So the election officer would be responsible for choosing the service provider, the company that actually has the electronic voting software. And then they would also be responsible for writing the instructions on how to access the system. So for example, in the land use plan vote, if you had received a voting ballot with a pin and stuff like that, that is all that kind of rules by the election officer element of things. And yeah, so that is a look at electronic voting, and we can go to the next slide. Perfect. So similar to electronic voting, campaigning and what is in the Act around campaign advertising is actually very straightforward. There are not that many changes being proposed here. It's really a couple of things. So I guess first is we've shifted the language from campaign advertising to just campaigning more generally. That way we're covering other activity that isn't necessarily an advertisement. But what's being proposed to change mostly is, first of all, adding a defined campaign period so it is clear when the rules around campaign advertising are in effect. And the second part of this is removing all the references to physical mail. Because right now the Act makes a lot of references to mailouts and size of postage, and we want to make sure that the regulations we develop are flexible and can accommodate other types of communication. So that's all that's being proposed for changes in the Act. That will, of course, be accompanied by some changes to regulation. And again, I want to note that these are draft, and this is just what we expect them to look like. But generally, we think that the regulation is going to be broken down into 4 parts. So it's going to start with some general rules around campaign advertising. These are things that are really in place already. So things like you can't use TFN branding in your advertisements. You can't be posting ads on TFN government buildings. So those are rules that are going to apply to all members. The second part is going to be employee-specific rules. So this is really aimed at member staff. And this is rules to ensure that everyone at TFN has a level playing field. So it is rules like you cannot use TFN resources in your campaign advertising. So no using the printer and the pens and the staplers and all that to make your advertisements. That's something you need to do with your own resources. You also can't use, for example, a staff contact list that you may have access to. You're not allowed to conduct campaign activity at work. These are all procedures that that are in place, and they're kind of informally sent around by email every election as a reminder to staff. But now they're being added to the regulation. The third part of this regulation will basically be TFN's existing advertising process, so the process to distribute advertisements through TFN publications. The change here is really going to be specifying that those can be electronic publications and are not limited to mail. And the fourth and final part of this regulation will be the penalties for breaking any of the rules in the regulation. This is a section that already exists. Right now, it's just defined by having a series of fines. I think we would like to have some more discretion for the election officer to do things like issue warnings and such. So that is the goal of the campaigning changes. And we can go to the next slide. And we're almost done. I know this is a lot, and I appreciate everyone's patience. So the final bit is kind of the least exciting bit. What a way to end. It is the language changes. So this makes up the bulk of the actual changes to the Act. And these are all things that are important behind the scenes stuff, but are not going to impact how you experience the election as a voter or as a candidate. There are quite a few changes, but they generally fall into one of 4 different categories. So the first category is what we've called removing legacy language. This is going through and taking out language from the Act that we don't need anymore because it was either a one-time event or it's a process that maybe TFN thought was useful in 2007, but it turns out it's something we haven't used and won't use in the future. So examples of this is removing language around the first term of the legislature. We're never going to have another first term of the legislature, and we don't really need that. Another example would be the interim election officer or the appointment of peace officers. Those are things that were taken from provincial legislation. They're not processes that TFN has ever used, nor will it need to use, so those are being removed. So that's the first category of changes. The second is language that is moved to regulation. So at the start of this, I talked about how in-depth the amendment process is for the Election Act, and one of the consequences of that is it's hard to change, and because it's hard to change, things have generally just not been changed in it over time. So any time in the past that there was an issue around lack of clarity or lack of detail, rather than amending the Act, what was typically done is there was further details added by way of regulation. The challenge with this is we ended up with a lot of areas where there's duplicate language that exists in both the Act and is also written elsewhere differently in the regulation. And it is conflicting and confusing, and it would be better to just have it in one place. There's also some items in the Act that are very detailed and would just be better suited to being in regulation. So some examples of what this looks like is the voter ID process. So right now, the Election Act has a description of how to check voter ID and what is considered voter ID, and that same process is written again in the regulation. For something like voter ID, where we need to be flexible and keep up to date with changes in voter ID, it's better to be in regulation, so it's just been moved there entirely. Same thing with issuing notices of election. There's a lot of detail in the Act that it's not really appropriate for it to be there, so it has also been moved to the regulation. The third part of the changes is clarification. So there are quite a few things in the Act that are a little bit confusing, have some awkward section naming, unclear processes, and those have all been clarified. So my favorite example is candidate eligibility. So it says right now in the Election Act that in order to be nominated, you need to be eligible to be a candidate, but it also says that only nominated people are eligible to be candidates. So it's kind of created this chicken and egg, which comes first, the nomination or the eligibility. So to fix that, we've just clarified it. So it just isn't circular anymore. Another example would be the section called questionable candidates, which was very unclear what that actually meant. We have done things like clarify that means challenging someone's candidacy because you don't think they are eligible, because that is actually what the contents of the sections say. The final bit of clarifying is around the amendment process to this Act. So the Election Act has been amended a couple times, and every time there's been a little bit of confusion about exactly how that process works. So what we've done is we've updated it so it now reads to in the same process that we've used for the last couple amendments. So it now clearly reflects what we've actually done in the past. The final bit of the language changes is the most boring of the most boring parts, and it's like the grammar fixes and changes to structure. So things like changing his or her to their, so we are removing gendered language. It's reordering sections so that they occur in chronological order. the order that things happen. And yeah, that's a summary of the changes. And we can go to the next, yep. And next steps. So this work has obviously been a long time in the making, and there's a lot of changes being discussed here. Should this be approved, there are some other things that need to happen before the next election. So the first is we need to finalize the regulations. So right now, like I mentioned, there are draft regulations in development, and I've covered the content of most of those. Those need to be finalized as early as possible, ideally in early 2026, so we have lots of time before the October election. So that's part one. And then the other part of this is the implementation-focused part. So one of the key takeaways from our engagement with members is members highlighted a lot of improvements they wanted to see to the election process that don't actually require us to change anything in the Act. So this includes things like doing a better job at providing information sessions to people interested in being candidates. It includes education workshops for people who are running. It includes training for legislators, sharing information about candidates. These are all actions that TFN can take without necessarily doing anything to the Election Act itself. And so to support implementing these changes and supporting EC in doing so, staff have proposed an interdepartmental election committee that will come together and do things like support EC in implementing this member feedback. It will also make sure that we're meeting all the technical deadlines. So there's a lot of milestone events that need to happen by a certain date. So for example, the nomination meeting, the all candidates meeting. So we need to keep track of all those dates and make sure we're hitting all our obligations. The committee is also going to support the post-election transition. So when the new government is elected, they can quickly get up to speed and really hit the ground running with all the information they need to start being effective immediately. And then the last thing is really looking at those barriers around candidate information. That's something we heard a lot about, and seeing what we can do to reduce them. So yeah, the committee is likely to be made up of staff from communications and policy and government services, and also tied in with the CAO's office, and really looking at making sure we have an excellent election in 2026. And I believe that's the end. Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to me, Heishka. It's a pleasure to speak about this, and I really look forward to hearing all the discussion and questions.
Well, thank you so much, Connor, for that. Actually, that's a detailed overview of Bill 002-2025. That concludes our first reading, and the purpose of the first reading is to ask for any clarification questions about the bill. We will be having full debate about the bill during second reading. So I would like to invite any legislators that might have any clarification questions about this first reading about the bill to raise their hands. Legislature Sultanat, Loretta Williams.
Aichka for the feather, and thank you, Squeakquel. I just want more clarification on the electronic voting. You know, like right now we have people, is there going to be electoral officer going up to Vernon and to Bellingham, because that's where a lot of our people are, and what the process is, you know, like, and just one question, Heichka.
Heichka, Connor? I don't know why you sat down.
Thank you for the feather. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know why I sat down either. I got, nervous and ran away. Yeah, okay, so in terms of the election officer and traveling, so the election officer, the travel part is kind of a separate question from the electronic voting part. So when it comes to administering the electronic voting part, when we do our procurement process for the election officer, the ability for the election officer to run the electronic voting system will be a requirement as part of the procurement, and they will be responsible for selecting a system that falls within TFN's parameters, so what's laid out in the regulation and the law. So they'll have to pick something that works within the rules that TFN sets. In terms of them traveling, so the Election Act now and also in both the current version and the new version do allow for polling stations to be held elsewhere. So they're theoretically now and in the future could be a polling station that's set up elsewhere for Vernon, for example, or Bellingham. There can also be advance voting. That would all be a decision of Executive Council. They have the authority to do it under the Act. Like I said, that's there currently, and that hasn't changed. So, yeah, the Act allows for it. It's what EC would decide is appropriate. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Heichka Connor. Any other clarification questions about the bill? Legislature Squamish, Melinda Cassidy.
Hitchcock for the Feather. I'm just wondering about the TFN Let's Gather social pinpoint. Is that something that's still active right now to go? Okay, so I can take a look at that before we debate at the next meeting.
Heichka, thank you so much for that question, Squamish. And is the contact point for that, if people don't have access, is that Cal? So if anybody doesn't have access to the pinpoint tool, to contact Cal Robinson, and he'll help him and his staff. Gabrielle, I think that's our new communication. Gabby is also, who got oathed in today, can help you get set up so that you can have access to that information as well. Legislature Tehuilam.
Hi, Chika. Thank you for your presentation, Connor. Just a question around the electronic voting. I'm wondering if it's possible to set up some sort of demo, some sort of demonstration at the next members gathering, or during some sort of one of the consultation meetings, I guess on lands here, as well as Vernon, Bellingham, or maybe one of the virtual sessions that we have, just to get people up to speed on what they can expect in terms of what the machines might look like, or what, yeah, just what the whole process might look like. Hi, Chika.
Thank you, Legislature Tehuilam. Any other? Oh, Connor, would you like to reply?
Sure. Yeah, I can now. Yeah, so in terms of setting up a kind of hands-on experience for members to get familiar with the system, so part of that was this most recent members gathering. That was part of the reason for introducing the electronic voting there. We know not everyone was able to participate in that, but that was sort of meant to be an initial intro session. And then I think for future sessions, I think the goal will be to, that'll be an important consideration in the procurement and the hiring of the election officer, is their ability to demonstrate the system before members and give them, yeah, insight into what it looks like and how to access it. And yeah, that's definitely a consideration that we'll be taking away when it's time to choose someone to run the election.
Heichka, you have a follow-up to Huilam?
Heichka Chumquad and Heichka Dayton for the Feather, and thanks for your response, Connor. Curious around, I guess, how the electronic voting will be done. For some reason, I pictured some little machine or something that you would use or something like that, but I would imagine a lot of that is done through people's phones and computers in this day and age. So yeah, just some clarification on that would be nice. Thank you.
Heichka Legislature Connor?
Yeah, so so the land use plan vote would be the example I would go to, and in that case, so members were issued a PIN. They could then use that PIN to log on to the voting website. I think most of them probably use their phone just because it was what was at hand, but you could use a computer as well. There is also a possibility of doing things like setting up a kiosk mode if you want to essentially have a polling station. I think that's something we would have to discuss in terms of election planning with the election officer to see if that makes sense. But yeah, so generally speaking, it would most likely be by phone, and I mean like smartphone and not dialing in. Yeah.
Hajka, thank you. I think there'll probably be some more questions during debate surrounding electronic voting. That seems to be the interest at the moment. Why don't we move into the next part of this legislators, if you could think about the questions that you would like to discuss and debate during second reading. And then this gives Connor a little bit of a heads up of maybe how to prepare for some of those questions that might come up. So thank you, Connor. You can sit now. I would now like to refer this bill to the Advisory Council for study and ask for a motion to move the bill to second reading. I will now read the motion to move Bill 002-2025, the Elections Act 2025, to second reading. Whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature has the authority under Section 512C of the Constitution Act to enact Tsawwassen laws. Whereas under the Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual, Section 23, each bill must receive 3 separate readings. Therefore, be it moved that Bill 002-2025, the Elections Act 2025, proceed to second reading. May I have a mover, please? Mover by Legislature Marianne Adams, seconder. Seconded by Chief Swamiset, Legislature Laura Cassidy. All in favor of moving this bill to second reading for further debate? Hands up high. All right, unanimous. This motion has been passed. Thank you, legislators, for your good work, and I look forward to our debate of this in the second reading. For our next piece of business tonight, I would like to call on again, Chief, you're really earning your keep today. Chief Swamiset, Chief Cassidy, to speak about Bill 003-2025, the Education, Health and Social Development Amendment Act, and then the Chief will read the motion to introduce the bill. Chief Cassidy?
Hutchka Dayton for the feather. Okay. At TFN, we envision a community of lifelong learners where all members have access to continuing education. Through the proposed amendment to the Education, Health and Social Development Act, the Tsawwassen government is strengthening its ability to support all its members in pursuing post-secondary education and training, no matter where they live. We recognize that education is one of the most challenging yet rewarding paths a person can take, and TFN is proud to walk alongside our members, empowering them along the way. This amendment will ensure that we can support the personal and professional growth of all our members. By championing the dreams and the aspirations of our people, we are investing in the strength, resilience, and future of TFN. I will now read the motion to introduce this bill. Motion 028-2025 to introduce Bill 003-2025, the Education, Health, and Social Development Amendment Act. Whereas the Tsawwassen government supports all members in their pursuit of education and training, and whereas the Members' Guarantees Act states that Tsawwassen government will provide services based on the principle of equality to all Tsawwassen members, and whereas the Post-Secondary Education Training and Assistance Regulation and the Post-Secondary Education Policy have both been amended since 2019 to remove the requirement that members live in Canada to qualify for the financial support for post-secondary education and training. And whereas the proposed amendments set out in Bill 003-2025 will align the Education, Health, and Social Development Act with the principle of providing education supports to all members regardless of where they live. Therefore, be it moved that Bill 003-2025, the Education, Health, and Social Development Amendment Act 2025, be introduced for the Tsawwassen Legislature's consideration, debate, and approval.
Hajka, Chief Swamiset. The Chief has moved the motion. Do I have a seconder? Seconder by Tehuilam, Legislature Tehuilam. All in favor, please raise your hands. Heichka, this motion has been passed unanimously. Thank you, legislatures. Now, I would now like to call upon Mary Childs, our General Counsel, to give us a brief overview of Bill 003, 2025. I see what happened. You guys drew straws to see who was going to do what presentation today. That's a nice way to divide up the work. Thank you, Mary.
And thank you, legislators, for the opportunity to talk to you about this bill, which, in contrast to the Election Act, is extremely short. It's a lot shorter than the motion to introduce it, and it's a lot shorter than my presentation. So you're not going to get anything at the level of complexity and detail that Connor provided you with, but I hope you'll find it helpful in any event. So, as you've heard, this act is to amend, or this bill is to amend the existing legislation, and I'm going to talk briefly about the background, the act itself, the changes that happened in 2019, and the effect of the bill. So the purpose of this is, as you've heard, to ensure that all TWASN members are eligible for support for post-secondary education and training. And the effect of it really is just to remove a limitation that's in the Act that seems to restrict it just to members ordinarily resident in Canada. So the Act itself, you'll see, is an Act that creates the essential frameworks in TWASN law that guide our support for education, health, and social development. And it sets standards for funding and consistent service delivery. And the provision that is proposed to be amended is in rather small print here, but it's Section 10, eligibility for post-secondary and training assistance. And it says TWASN members who are ordinarily resident in Canada are eligible for financial assistance to attend the post-secondary education or training institutions listed in regulations made under this Act in accordance with criteria and requirements set out in those regulations. So most of the detail is in the regulations already, what kind of institution you can attend, what the criteria are for qualification, but this wording about ordinarily resident in Canada is what's proposed to be changed, and that is because it doesn't really align with TFN's consistent policy. So the Members' Guarantees Act says TWASN government will provide services based on the principle of equality of all TWASN members. And similarly, in fact, the Constitution Act has similar guarantees in there about members having equal access to programs offered by TFN. So in 2019, the regulation that's made under the Act, that's the one that sets out all the details about what you can get support for and how you apply for it. That was changed to remove the requirements that members live in Canada to qualify for post-secondary funding. And the policy, which has even more detail, was amended to fix itself and be aligned with the regulation. And so since 2019, it's been the case that TFN has provided support to its members who want to pursue more education regardless of where they live. So operating in a way that is generous and supportive of all members, no matter where they live. However, when these changes were introduced in the regulation and the policy, the Act itself wasn't changed. So it still refers to members who are ordinarily resident in Canada. Now, it doesn't expressly say that members who live elsewhere are not eligible for support, but it would be preferable if it very clearly removes this limitation. And so that's the reason behind this very, very brief bill. The effect is it will remove from Section 10 the words "who are ordinarily resident in Canada." So we'll just say that TWASN members may receive support in accordance with the regulation. It doesn't mean any change in the way TFN operates. Already, for the past 6 years, no TFN member has been denied support for post-secondary or education or training based on where they live. The practice at TFN has to provide support to everybody who wants to further their education. And so that's really all that I have to say about this bill. It's a very, very short bill, as you'll see if you look at the text. It just removes those few words from Section 10 of the Act.
Heichka Mary, that was a very brief presentation. Thank you very much. Just as we did for the previous bill, I invite legislators to ask any clarifying questions about this bill, and knowing that we will have full debate opportunity at the second reading. Are there any clarification questions? Legislature Sultanat?
Thank you for the feather. This is just clarification on, like for the training. I brought this up at the workshop, like, does that include if artists, like carvers, weavers, whatever, will they be able to apply for funding for that? I guess that's just clarifying. Thank you.
Heichka, thank you for your clarification question. Sultanat? Mary?
Thank you for the feather, and thank you for the question. What programs and workshops are eligible for funding is part of the detail that's set out in the regulation and the policy. So I think, in any particular case, it would depend on whether that workshop fits in with the requirements that are established and applied by member services or the training under HR, depending on what the individual is applying for.
Heichka, thank you very much, Mary. Are there any other points of clarification for the tabling of this bill? All right, thank you. Moving on to the motion to move Bill 003-2025, the Education, Health, and Social Development Amendment Act, to second reading. Whereas the TFN Legislature has the authority under Section 512C of the Constitution Act to enact TFN laws. Whereas under the Legislature Rules of Procedures Manual, Section 23, each bill must receive 3 separate readings. Therefore, be it moved that Bill 003-2025, the Education, Health, and Social Development Amendment Act, proceed to second reading. May I have a mover? Legislature Marianne Adams. May I have a seconder? Legislature Taylor Baker. All in favor? All righty. That is all of the votes. This motion has been carried unanimously. We now have brought this bill into second reading, where we will have an opportunity for full debate and discussion. Thank you very much, legislators. I really appreciate that. Good work that you've done. This leads us on to, I think this is our last item, and I'm thinking we're all looking a little heavy-lidded, so it's almost as bad as being the speaker before lunch. Our next agenda item is a report on previous resolutions, and I'd like to call upon Twyla Smith, our Director of Strategic Initiatives, who gets the fortunate opportunity to make sure that we are all focused and paying attention to her report. Twyla, we invite you to share with the rest of the legislature. Heichka.
Heichka Squeakle and Heichka to the Feather Runner. I do want to start just by saying Heichka Squeakle for your kind words tonight, and Heichka to Quintil Tanat and the director team for having faith in me to take on this position. I'm very, very grateful for all the opportunities I've had here at TFN and to do very meaningful work and to work with such incredible people. Being here with the legislature has always been one of my favorite parts of the job, and getting to hear guidance from you and getting to build relationships with you really is so meaningful to me. So Heichka to all of you. Thank you so much. Sorry. But I'm pleased tonight to be presenting the update on previous legislative assembly resolutions. So as you all know, resolutions are a non-binding expression of the will of the legislature and are used to direct Executive Council to consider legislative, regulatory, or policy options on a particular topic. So to provide transparency and accountability back to this legislative table, staff provide updated information on the responses to previous resolutions at each session. So I'll go through an overview of the responses to the resolutions approved at our last session in spring. And then you'll also have a list of all resolutions approved by the current term of government with some updates in your report there. But it is getting late and nobody wants me to read that much, so we'll just stick with the ones from the last session for the update. So the first one was the resolution to increase quarterly distributions. This resolution is in progress. Staff are beginning to prepare for the 26-27 budget development process and will provide analysis to the Finance and Audit Committee on availability of revenue sources to implement this resolution and any associated financial impacts. The second one is the resolution to increase employment and training living allowances. So this one is also in progress, and I have to say we have done a lot of work actually on this one, doing research to support the review of the both the employment and training and post-secondary allowances. And we have quite a detailed workshop plan for November. We really tried hard to get this one in before this session so that we'd have a more substantive update for you, but unfortunately just with scheduling we weren't able to make it happen. So the research in the workshop really looks at what other First Nations and modern treaty nations are doing for their living allowances, looking at cost of living, so what actually are students looking at paying in terms of costs. And we've focused that sort of mostly here in the Lower Mainland because we know this is a very expensive place to live, so most people living other places should be able to manage if you can here. And then the goal of the workshop is really to seek Executive Council's direction on both short-term and long-term options to address concerns around the living allowance. So both looking at what an increase could look like now, but how can we actually make this program better to support learners at all stages of life, whether you're just graduated high school or whether you're a mid-career looking to upgrade, and really thinking about how we can support those different stages of life. And we do expect that any increases can be included in next year's budget as we continue to work on this. And I just want to acknowledge the importance of education to this community and really wanting to take a really deep look at how we can support all members going forward. And next was the resolution to enforce the Community Safety and Security Act. So a lot of great discussion around this at the last session. This one's in progress as well, and really implementation of this work and other related actions to address community safety are happening through two initiatives. So the first is that community safety strategy, which includes recommendations to expand the use and improve enforcement of the Act, including ensuring that appropriate processes are established. So staff are currently working with the expert panel to develop an implementation plan informed by the engagement at the members gathering as well as some family meetings before that. Yeah, lots more to come on community safety strategy. We're going to be talking about that for a long time to come. And the second is the Law Foundation project. So the goal of this project is to redraft the Community Safety and Security Act in a way that reflects community values, Coast Salish approaches and teachings, needs, rights, and traditional laws. So TFN is collaborating with Dr. Sarah Morales and Hereditary Chief Shanna Thomas from Layaxon, who are coordinating the working group with the ultimate goal of presenting revised legislation to yourselves in the spring of 2026. And then the hope is that the methodology that is used for this project can actually be used in the future to review other Tsawwassen laws as well. And that is the report. Happy to address any questions or take them down if I need to get help answering them. Heichka.
Heichka, thank you so much for that report. There has certainly been a lot of progress to be proud of. I now invite any legislators that might have any questions or comments with respect to this report. Legislature Tehuilam, I read your mind. I felt that vibe that you were going to raise your hand.
Heichka Dayton for the feather, and Heichka Twyler for their presentation, and congratulations on your director position. Just curious about the resolutions that are put forward before us here. I'm just wondering if we could add on the names of the people that brought forward the resolution as well as the ones that seconded, and if that could be made part of this presentation, that'd be much appreciated. Heichka.
Heichka, thank you very much, Legislature Tehuilam. right, Twyla, yeah, go ahead if you have something to add.
Haichka, I wasn't sure if a response was needed there, but that's an excellent idea. We'll make sure to do that going forward. Thank you.
Haichka, thank you. Any other comments or questions with respect to this report? I love how our work evolves and how we continue to be accountable to each other. And, you know, there was a time when we didn't have these reports and tables and we didn't present back, and, you know, another request to evolve and adapt it to serve us better, to make sure that we're working together as one. So, Legislature Kwakwia, Andrea Jacobs.
Haichka Squeakle CM, Haichka Featherrunner, and Twyla for the presentation. I really appreciate getting updates on the resolutions. One of them was mine, that is near and dear to my heart, on the Community Safety and Security Act. So I guess the first question that I have is, this is an update. I'm just wondering, will we continue to get these updates? Like in the spring as well? So that was one question. And then I just wanted to make a comment on the initiatives and the updates. I think it's really awesome. I really enjoyed seeing some of the work happening at legislature and at members gathering. I just want to thank staff for really seeing the importance on such an issue, the community safety strategy, and we have some really awesome people working with us, the hereditary chiefs and with Quintil Tanat and our group. The working group that's come out, I unfortunately wasn't able to attend on the Saturday, but really looking forward to that work. I think it's great, so just wanted to lift you up for that and recognize that that work is happening. And just looking forward to getting updates. And I guess the third question was wondering about this. This is great progress. I'm just wondering, like, in the interim, you know, I mean, it's still a problem. We still have these drug houses. It's still happening. My question was, is Executive Council still meeting with Delta Police and getting those updates? I remember it used to happen a long time ago, but just wanted to check in on that. Haichka.
Haichka, thank you for those questions. Twyla or Quintil Tanat, and then maybe...
Haichka to the Feather Runner and Squeakle. I'll start by just saying, yes, we'll absolutely continue to give these updates at every session, and I don't want to take any credit at all for the Law Foundation project. That's all been Mary taking the lead with Quintil Tanat on that. So, and then if I may, Squeakle, can I hand it to Quintil Tanat to answer the question about EC?
Yes, please, Quintil Tanat.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. And I would say that EC is increasing the amount of time we're meeting with Delta Police, whether it be the brass, so to speak, or it be our liaison officer. And it's an important relationship to keep at. And I think they're aware of what we're trying to achieve through community safety recommendations. There's no easy answers, but it's important that the work continue like we did at the workshop. And the work now is to try and create a work plan for the panel's recommendations and get some progress going on those and keep legislature updated as progress is made. But yeah, we are in the process of trying to develop a workshop for Executive Council to kind of look at the top priorities for the next year out of those recommendations. And I don't know if we answered your second question or not. Yeah, okay.
Haichka, thank you for raising that Legislature Kwakwia. It is an important community issue that's on the top of our minds and top of our hearts, all of our hearts, every single day, and trying to find ways and systems to create that safety that we all strive for. So thank you for your resolution. Thank you for your questions. Any other questions or comments from this report? say you can sit down yet, Twyla. Thank you, Twyla. Thank you very much. And thank you, legislatures. And of course, if you have any questions about any of the resolutions or any of the progress like that, please don't hesitate to contact staff. We all know that they are always happy to make themselves available to support legislative questions for anything that you would like more information about. Well, that concludes our formal agenda for tonight. Thank you for this really good first night of this session, legislatures. It was a really good work for the opening session of our fall 2025 legislative session. We've had guests, we've had oaths, we've had long presentations, Connor. We had short presentations, we've had reports and updates, we've had opening comments. We had our heartbeats joined as one with our meal song, with our processional. And it's good to be sharing this table with each of you. We want to also extend that gratitude to our honored guests from our Squamish relatives and on staff and team for sharing their evening with us. Some of them have departed already because it is a long journey. Some of the policy and procedure and legal nerds are still here, but that's okay. We're happy to be sharing all this work with you. So thank you for staying for this whole time. We wish you a safe journey home. Please drive slow and carefully on your way home. Dayton. Was that a picture of you when you were little on one of those slides there? Yeah. Look at the wonderful young man that he's grown into. So we saw the earlier version and we saw the current model, right? So it's great to see that, Dayton. Dayton Jacobs Mayo. Thank you so much for opening prayer in our language. I would say that not only are we proud of you, but our ancestors are proud of you for carrying that voice. I don't know if you can understand and how we feel, how much that means to us. And we're so proud of you for taking that on and standing up. It can be a little nerve-wracking to be in front of that microphone, and you recited it from your heart, and Spalaktuit also, she acknowledged that. So really grateful for that. And on top of that, thank you for being our feather runner and keeping us, speaking in an orderly fashion. These nights can be long, so thank you very much for giving up your time and honoring us as a youth and reminding us of the work that we do is for you, your cousins and your friends. So such great respect and thanks to you, to Dayton. And I'm always so grateful for Legislature Tukwila Hialsawans to do the drumming and share his voice for our processional as we do our ceremonial walk in. And Spalaktuit and Kwekwemasat, again, sharing their beautiful voices and sharing that song. It really does start our meal off in a good way. And I love it when the sisters sing together. I just watch them and it just brings peace for me to focus my day. And the food, of course, thanking the caterers, Sumit and Kathy. Really appreciate their professionalism, their attention to detail, and their true desire to feed us a good meal, in which they did. So very, very grateful. Thank you to the elders that came, the advisory council that came, the Tsawwassen people that came, the staff that stayed here, some that came and had to leave as well, and for all of those that are watching on live stream and that are also our guests. So thank you again to those live streaming, to watching us. It's nice to do that in the comfort of your home. I might be a little bit jealous that you're on your couch watching us and I'm not quite home yet, but that's okay. Thank you very much. With that, I am very grateful for the honor and privilege of being your Squeakquel. Thank you for honoring me with this role. And now that concludes our agenda, and there's a ceremonial procession for us to formally close this table and leave with Legislature Tukwila drumming us out. Haichka OCM.